Dave, this is a marquee matchup for the couple of the top players. I realize we focus on the teams, but it does have a different feel when these guys play, and that's just a thought on that, because this will be your first opportunity to coach it. Yeah. But it's not you've watched this as a player from your playing days over the years.
Well, just speaking from let's take myself out of the coaching part of it and into the fan part. When anytime you get to watch great players play against each other, it usually turns out to be a really good game. I remember as a kid, Bobby Orr used to come on Hockey Night in Canada, and whether you're a Boston fan or not, you always wanted to watch Bobby Orr play. So you get top players and in a matinee that you're expecting to see a great game with top players competing against each other, which makes it exciting.
Crosby and Malkin for Pittsburgh. McDavid obviously acknowledged, but has Draisaitl joined that sort of level? You mentioned the other night the different roles he was playing for you, but he's had a heck of a start to the year.
He's had a great start, and he does so many things in a game that has an impact on it. So he's certainly, our guys are younger than their guys, but they're both building their resumes, and and when all's said and done, if they can have resumes like those two guys on Pittsburgh with cups and trophies and scoring titles, things like that, it would be nice to see.
Dave, what's the toughest part about trying to keep structure on your team when you have guys who tend to play a game sometimes outside of the realm of a system, and could freelance and maybe try things that other guys don't try?
Well, you have to let players be players, because I'm a big believer that every player, you got to maximize their potential. So you have to let them be players. But there's also, I think hockey is the greatest team sport there is. So if you don't play well as a team and play with structure with your teammates, and that's especially without the puck, then you're just chasing the game. So our guys have done a great job. They recognize their responsibility, offense, and playing with the puck and how they have to create. But they've done a nice job of really buying into the structure of how we want to play and bring our goals against down. So it's always that fine balance. But you never want to take the creativity away from players, but top players also recognize you have to play like a team if you're going to be a winning team.
Did you see like this lend itself to maybe having to be reminded to do that, or could it get away from you a bit if you have players you think?
There's a lot of focus on great players in that, but the main focus is on winning. How does your team win? And if you're not willing to play structure or play well as a team, you're probably not going to win games like this, especially against a good team.
Matinee game. I know some guys are creatures of habits. How do you kind of try and get the best out of them when you ever want to close?
It's funny. That's been a question for years and years. There's some guys that love it, and there's some guys. I remember Sergei Zubov. I used to have to nudge him 10 times. Like, Zuby, you awake yet? You here yet? So it's you got to get to know your team. But I don't think, like I say, we have good matchup tomorrow. I think our team will be ready to play. But different players, they approach it different, because it really takes you out of your normal routine. So the players that adapt to that best usually play the best.
Dave, just circling back to Draisaitl, obviously he leads the league in points right now, leads the league in goals, but you also put him out in that 5-on-3, and you brought that up in Columbus. How much of an asset is it to have a guy like that who can be so defensively responsible? And is his defensive game a little overlooked?
A little bit when he concentrates on it. Really, 5-on-3, you go out and concentrate. That's one. It's funny because that's a trait in a player that I learned when I was in Pittsburgh here a long time ago. Scotty Bowman was our coach. I was playing for Pittsburgh, and we had Mario Lemieux and Yager and Francis, and I was a penalty killer at the bottom end of that. And I, through my whole career, I was one of those guys that killed penalties 5-on-3. And I got here, and Scotty Bowman used to use Mario Lemieux at it. And he would say, Mario, play 5-on-3. And I'm going, hey, that's my job, right? And then Mario would go out there with a long stick and just read all the situations and do a great job at it. Since then, I've always thought they're top players who read plays very well. Are 5-on-3 are good picks there. So Leon's one of those guys. He just figures things out. I've tried it with different players along the way, and one player that was nobody would ever think could ever remotely be 5-on-3. Mike Ribeiro was a great player 5-on-3 against. He was unbelievable. Just he could read situations, read where it's going. right? And he used to laugh at me for putting him out there, and people looked at me like, "What are you doing?" But he would do a good job at it. So I'm not saying Leon's there, but Leon, he reads situations very well that allow him to be a good penalty killer in that situation.
And just a couple of housekeeping things for tomorrow. Looks like Shan is good to go.
He looks. We'll see how he is tomorrow, but he got out there and go. We sent. I think there'll be a release later today. Lagesson went down, and we've got one player coming up today just to cover ourselves. But looks like we got through it all right the other night.
Looks like Smith was in the starter's net today.
We'll see how tomorrow. But that's where we are. Yeah.
So there's 5 guys in October that had 20 points in the league. That hasn't happened since you played. Since 93, 94 was the last time. So do you think we've hit a place where we're back into, is there some offense coming now? Do we have a chance of seeing some 50-goal scorers? You know,
I don't know about that. You know, the one difference is you're seeing more teams. You have a top power play unit that spends more time on. Like the old days, okay, one group you take a minute and the other group take a minute. Okay. You're seeing more teams that are trying to maximize their top players there. You know, so that's a factor. That's a factor I've noticed with this group here. And you know, I'd always been a guy where one power play group gets going and then the other one gets a whack at it. And here, those guys do a pretty good job most of the time. So those guys get extra time there. But you are right. I mean, top players now, it's funny because there's teams really bear down. Like, you know, when you're coaching, I notice other coaches when they're coaching against our team, you know they're talking about trying to shut down that top line, but yet they still are effective. So I think it's a combination of top players are really strong. You got the rules of the game allow players a little more freedom. Power plays are really dialed in now. So there's a combination.
Equipment is finally at a point where they tried to get it for about 30 years.
Yeah, I think there's still a long way to go on that, but I'm an old school guy that way.
Joe Pearson, how did you think he looked in that first game?
All right. He's been all right. Yeah, he's you know, his puck moving is he makes good plays that we had to end up defending less and get a little more on transition. So good start for him coming back.
How much does that help? You know, just get everyone slotted back in their comfortable slots.
Yeah, very much so. Getting Rusty back over on the left really helped his game, and I give him credit. Like he went over there, and we had no choices. We had to throw him over there because he's played there a bit before, and he'll give you everything he's got. But I think he's more comfortable back on the left side.